Rick, I know you're feeling crazy. How are you? Mojo Monday.
Mojo Monday. And yes, I'm feeling a little crazy.
There you go. So I'm going to laugh real quick at the start of this because we were joking this week around how the top of our playlist was crafting your eulogy. And like that was the last title on the top of our Mojo Monday playlist. Wait till they see the title of this week for the next week, right? Why don't you kick us off? Tell us what we're talking about today.
We're talking about going big or go home, and that's Buc-ees. Those of you that are familiar, and at this point, I would be surprised if anyone listening, there's probably no one that hasn't heard of Buc-ees, and most people have experienced it. But last week, I was driving through Calhoun, and I stopped off, and Brett, there must have been 1,000 cars. There were 100 gas pumps loaded with people pumping gas. Gas ain't cheap. There's money flowing into the register. I walk inside. I mean, there's 500 more people wandering around inside, excitedly taking selfies, buying everything from, the diversity of offering is unrivaled at Buc-ees. It is truly an experience.
The Disney World of gas stations, right?
It's the Disney of gas stations. I can only imagine what it's like to have, young kids now that you're rolling down and all of a sudden the Buc-ees, Buc-ees 12 exits from now, Buc-ees 8 exits. I mean, it's become quite a phenomenon.
It really has. And, they just put the one in Calhoun. I think there's one down towards Warner Robins, Macon, Georgia area. And then, of course, I think there's one in Leeds, Alabama, and you could keep going forever. These things are becoming cultural in a sense. Like you plan your stops around where the next Buc-ees is sometimes. And it's kind of crazy. So you were there and you called me and I was like, oh my gosh, take some video. Let's do a mojo on this. I really got to say, like, it's fun to talk about, but I think there's some pretty powerful lessons around this that we want to pull out in this mojo this morning. And I wrote down what I think what are three big messages that I think Buc-ees really gives us. And the first one you kind of already alluded to, but it's go big or go home. And what's interesting is I actually think Buc-ees is a real estate play. I think they buy real estate at the corner of a very high traffic interstate intersection. And for 20 years, 30 years, it's a gas station, but at the end of it, they're going to own an incredible asset. And it's going to be paid for by all of us buying jerky and beaver nuggets and all the junk they sell. Because wasn't it you that said, somebody posted on social media, like I stopped to get gas and spent $100 on snacks or something?
That's exactly right. This was just this week. Part of the reticular activator, the minute you start thinking about, something, that whole what you focus on expands. Man, everywhere I go, I'm like seeing Buc-ees postings, where and maybe my phone's listening and it's feeding them to me, which is, that's a scary animal all its own.
Yeah. In the real estate profession, we always kind of make conversation around, hey, if you're a renter, you're really paying somebody else's debt service on their asset. You should buy your own home and own that asset over a period of time, pay your asset debt service. So at the end of that journey, you have a marketable, equitable asset. And I look at Buc-ees and think, man, that's 100% a real estate play. It's not just a great gas station, not just a great place to dump a few $100s on who knows what, but I really think it's a big real estate play, Rick. What else do you think about Buc-ees?
So I absolutely believe that you're correct, but it's also a marketing play. And so in thinking about today's episode, I reminded myself, just it popped up in my head that Gary Keller used to talk about a book by two fellows. There's two people wrote it, Al Reis, R-E-I-S, and Jack Trout, T-R-O-U-T, like the fish. And it's positioning the battle for your mind. And what they go into is the details of what it is to really market one. And there's two aspects to this conversation. One is the message, or what is what do you want the consumer to hear? And then the method, which is how do you deliver that message in a way that's compelling, memorable, and inspiring? And so when you think about Buc-ees, you're like, what is the message? One is, it's not just a gas station. You're stopping for an experience. The entire family is going to enjoy this experience.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there you can't find. I mean, on one end, Brett, there was a deer stand feeder, a deer feeder. And I'm thinking, who goes to get gas and needs you know what? I forgot my deer feeder. I should buy one now.
Yeah.
And, and you go inside and there's everything from a clothing section to 35 beef jerky choices to, hamburgers. They've got a great brisket, and
Rick, I was at the beach not a couple months ago and I saw somebody wearing a Buc-ees swimsuit and I'm going, this is out of control.
Well, yeah. So they figured out this. So the message is we've got it all. We're bigger, better, and badder than any other option on the market. So when we talk about competitive advantages in companies and with your brand, if you happen to be in sales or marketing, what are your competitive advantages and how are you selling those? And it seems to me that consumers are screaming loudly. They want bigger and better. Yeah. And, I'm also reminded of the thought that, people don't want to be sold, but they sure as heck want to buy. And so how do you convert the message into an invitation versus manipulation? And so they've done a tremendous job of positioning a value proposition. And, you mentioned in our conversation, the bathrooms as a value proposition.
Well, 100%. I think one of the things Buc-ees solved was a very simple problem. And anybody that takes any kind of road trip has probably had some kind of conversation around if there was somebody that needed to use the restroom, had anxiety around whether or not those restrooms were clean.
Yeah, and available.
And guaranteed when you go to Buc-ees, you're going to have a clean restroom experience and available, right? And they solved one simple problem around road trips that takes that anxiety out of, I can always stop at a Buc-ees if I need to use the restroom and have a clean experience.
100%. There's an area to walk your dog and you've got a clean bathroom. And there's probably 50 stalls in each bathroom. And they're happy to sell you some artwork on the way to the bathroom.
Yeah. Did you ever think we'd be talking about bathrooms on Mojo Monday? No, but the irony is they've thought of everything. And it's really a marketing study, as you pointed out, right? Like it's a mind share and a marketing study of attracting people to buy.
Yeah. I mean, what's your story and how are you conveying it? And the most powerful way for your story to be conveyed, if it's business, is word of mouth, consumer-based, consumer to consumer. Peer advocacy is absolutely the most powerful version of support for your brand.
Yeah. Who do you think is Buc-ee's biggest competitor?
I mean, the only people that pop into my head are Racetrack and Quick Trip. And but hey, how about this? So you brought up an interesting point by asking that question. They were the first level of evolution. When you roll in and you've got 20 pumps instead of 4, 6, 8, maybe 30 pumps, and a full service, but it's really a convenience store and not an experience. They'll sell you the big gulp for 69 cents, 48 ounces of soda. And that was like the big draw.
Yeah. But it was never a clean restroom experience. And you didn't really buy merchandise. No. It was just centered around food or soda. And I guess QT or Racetrack created some little kitchen experience, but at least there it's still centered around food. Buc-ee's gone full blown merchandising, right?
It's the gauntlet. Well, if you go to Racetrack and you want to eat a real meal, you have to go to Racetrack, fill up, maybe grab a soda, maybe not. And then you turn around and have to hunt down a Wendy's, a Chick-fil-A, Arby's. You still real food. So Buc-ee's is, again, solved another
real meals.
It's debatable.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, from a competition standpoint, I think they're in a league of their own. And maybe that's the lesson here is they've taken an experience and reimagined it. They reimagined how to attract people. They reimagined the experience. They solved a very simple problem, which I would venture to say you never wait for a gas pump because there's so many gas pumps. And you never wait for a restroom nor have anxiety around having a clean restroom to go to. And I don't think that QT or racetrack actually solved those two problems. I've waited for gas at those restaurants or those gas stations, and I'm not sure they're the cleanest of restrooms in those two either.
Yeah, there. I mean, here it is, Brett. It's the story of good to great.
Yeah.
Good is fine until great shows up.
Yeah. And if it's so great, I'll wear a bathing suit to the beach.
Yeah, you take a picture and post that. That's what Buc-ee's counting on.
Yeah, of
They're
course.
counting. They even have a mascot, for gosh sakes, that runs around helping you take your selfie.
Yeah.
Who thought that up? Who went, we're going to put this beaver cat in a big hooded suit and everyone's going to die to take pictures. I mean, they've captured it, man. They make it fun. It's family friendly. It's memorable. And to your point, they've solved a problem. So in your life and business, what I want people to hear today is, what problem are you solving and how are you converting good to great in your world?
Yeah. I think the lessons that we really kind of want people to take from this, one, I think, is exactly what problem you're solving. How do you go from good to great? That really speaks to a mind share and a marketing conversation. No?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And the other thing I think is you got to double down on real estate. This is our industry, but it's really a global strategy to own real estate. And whether it's talking somebody from being a tenant to a homeowner, or being a business that leases space from a commercial landlord to a business that owns their own real estate, whether it's commercial or residential, it really doesn't matter. The wealth of America is primarily driven by owning real estate. It's a well-documented fact.
Yeah, you double dip when you play the real estate game and the branding, marketing, business game.
100%. So wrap us up here. Tell me why next time I walk into Buc-ees, what's the reticular activating system that needs to go off in my head that says, this is my reminder about me and how I need to think about my life and my business?
Well, there's two things. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, because somebody's moving forward. And in essence, they're going to pass you and create better. And so how are you constantly considering what aspects of your value proposition that are vulnerable to competition, and how can you get there first? Because one of the number one premise of winning in business is being the first initial adopter and claiming your ground first. So is your unique proposition really unique, or are we just following a herd mentality living? The other is, are you creating stories worth retelling?
Yeah.
Are people running around going, you won't believe what my realtor, dentist, doctor, whatever profession you're in, are people running around sharing the good news that your experience was head and shoulders unique enough to be worthy of retelling that story?
Boom. Rick, for the next week, our headline on Mojo Monday is going to be, what does Buc-ees have to offer? But I love it. Thank you, my friend. Happy Mojo Monday.
Happy Mojo Monday, everybody.